If the European Rally Championship had a crown jewel event, I would say this is pretty much it. It's time to head to the southern reaches of Czechia now. It's time for Barum Czech Rally Zlin, the 55th edition, in 2026. And let's start off by talking about the entry list. 115 entries on the list, so we're going to be flying through it a bit quicker than usual to see if I can cover all the ground on it. Last year we didn't, but let's see. Teo Sunin will open it as the championship leader, followed by the reigning champion Mika Marcek. Then it'll be Andrea Mabellini as the first non-Skoda in the Lancia Ypsilon, followed by three more Skodas for Jakub Matulka, who was second last time out, Marco Bellaccia and Isaac Rierson. Then we have the lead Citroen for William Crichton. We have the lead MRF car, Fabia for Simona Tempestini. And then we have Tuukka Kolpinen, who's going to be in the number 9 car. We don't have a number 10 on the entry list, but we do have number 11, Eric Seiss, as the first Hyundai, also MRF. Then Tristan Charpentier in a Fabia. Then two Toyotas for Roberto Black and Philippe Marège, who we've seen absolutely rapid over the years. And then it's Mr. Barum himself, the person who is won more times than he hasn't on this event, Jan Kopecki. Czech rally legend. One of those people who you've probably heard of over the years, especially if you go back through older WRC stuff. He is Skoda through and through. Followed by Adam Drezek, who has been one of the top performers in Czechia in recent years. Simon Wagner is there in a Hyundai, and then we have Philip Cohen as well. Václav Pech Jr. will be behind the wheel of a Skoda Fabia. Oh no, sorry, a Citroen C3 even. I think we've seen it with World Rally Car machinery in recent years. Gabor Nemeth is there in his Fabia, and Jaromir Tarabus as well. Then we have Martin Vlicek, who we haven't seen for a while, behind the wheel of a Hyundai i20. Dominik Jakej and Robert Kolchak, who we used to see, I believe, in the Junior WRC. Andrei Gitfan is there with MRF. And then you've got Tomasz Kirka with another Fabia. And then we get into the Rally 3 machinery on the official ERC entry list. Starting off with Ville Vatanen in the Fiesta, CJ Coleman in a Fiesta, Petr Kaczarek Jr. behind the wheel of another Fiesta. Then we have the lead Clio, the returning Lucas Zielinski, who I don't think we've seen for a couple of rounds now. Then we have some more Irish talent, Callum Graffin, Craig Ryhill, and then you have another Fiesta for Igor Vidwak. Then you have Kian Caldwell, Charles Tuthill, and then Marsan Gorny, as well as Alexandra Maria Teslavan. Then we have another Clio for Sebastian Batinsky, back to Fiestas for Tadeusz Szpienko, and then another Clio for Roland Steng. Then it's into Rally 4s. Davide Pesavento will open up the list. Here, what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll list the non-juniors, because pretty much all of them in the ERC4 are juniors for this one. Davide Pesavento, Tom Heinrichs, Timo Schulz, Tommaso Sandrin, Colin Dunker, Carl-Peter Nordstrand, Francesco De Cecchi, Sebastian Dalla Piccola, Rhys Suleiman, Francesco Pacanella, Carl McBride, Philip Shiposh, and Luca Proglov. Then we have some non-juniors in the ERC4. That is Valentino Leda, Ludwig Zigliani, and Ciprian Lupu, who's behind the wheel of the Rally 5 that we've seen a few times this year. And then we get into the people who are entered into the National Series. Lots and lots of Fabias, including an old spec R5 for Pavel Shevchik. And then as we continue to go through the list as well, you will see some more Rally 2s and Rally 3 machinery on top of all of that. I am not going to cover all 115 cars, am I? I can see another Rally 5 in here. It's a Fiesta Rally 5, which is the first time I think we've seen one on the ERC entry list this year for Kubra Denizci Keskin. Going further down the entry list, I'm seeing more Fabia R5s and Rally 2 Evos. A few Rally 4s, and then we get into some of the interesting ones. A Citroen C2 Super 1600 for Krzysztof Zepivak. We have an R-Bar 124 Rally GT here for Martin Rada Sr., followed by an Evo 9 Impreza for Marcel Tuchek, and a Clio Rally 3, which apparently has the same seating as the Rally GT for Jan Schmid. In addition to all of that, I can see another C2 Super 1600 for Zolta Juricki, a Honda Civic for Andrei Meziorak, some Clios, some Opel Adam Cubs here as well. And then we get further down the entry list. A Peugeot 106, a Skoda Fabia TDI, a Civic Type R R3, some of the stuff, if you are familiar with Richard Burns Rally, that pops up. As does the Lada VFTS that Lubomir Konchel is going to be behind the wheel of. Going even further down the list, I see a Skoda Felicia for Andrei Kavinsky. A 992 GT3 Cup for Karel Macek. And a Skoda 130 RS for Karel Hock. Yeah, numbers through to 123 on this entry list, 115 cars in total. Some real varieties outside of what's actually quite a varied entry list in the 3 ERC categories. And now in terms of the stages for this event, we have a total of 215 competitive kilometres along 13 stages. The first one being on Friday night, as well as the qualifying and shakedown. And then we have 6 on Saturday and 6 on Sunday. Saturday and Sunday stages are split into 2 loops of 3. The shakedown is a Žlutava test. It is 6.35 kilometers. It's previously been part of the Helenkovic test, which does not actually appear on this year's edition. So, because we will probably be familiar with some bits of this, especially again, it's one of those ones that if you play Richard Burns Rally, I believe it is quite a lot of the end of the stage. So you might be quite familiar with some parts of this test. I believe it's also part of it ended up inspiring the EA Sports WRC stage for the CER. Anyways, Friday's proper action is the Zlin Super Special. Again, featured in Richard Burns Rally, if you ever want to try it out. It is 9.57 kilometers. It has been unchanged since it first appeared on the Barum. Well, more or less unchanged since it first appeared on the Barum way back in 2007. I think the main difference has been where there have been subtle changes in the road. So the difference in measurements has been as little as, say, 0.4 of a kilometer. Then we open up on Saturday with the Pohorelic test. That is 12.51 kilometers. It was part of the Komarov shakedown in previous years. Again, another stage you'll be familiar with if you play Richard Burns Rally. I'm just thinking about this because of the amount of RBR I've been doing on Czech tarmac recently. I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I know this one. I know this one. You end up with a bit of a climb up through some roads that can get quite slippy quite quickly. Then you end up with a descent through a valley before pushing out of the town at the end of the test. Some nice, neat little junctions. It could be quite technical in places. The Troyak test, 25.59 kilometers. It has previously served as the Potter Run test in different editions of the Barum Rally. I believe in this format, it last appeared half with the Potter Run test, then half with the Vanjokovic test back in 2024. But the Troyak test itself, in this current format, was more or less seen back in 23, albeit run in the opposite direction. Then stage 4 and 7, the third stage, final stage of both loops, is the bunch test. This is a familiar test for a lot of drivers. Is this the one where trying to remember, Hayden Paddon had a moment here one of the years. I think this is the one where everybody kept sliding off in the rain. I don't think this is the one where he ripped off the suspension back in, or it might have been back in 24. Either way, this is another one that can be quite windy and technical. It's named after the peak of the one of the tallest hills that you pass twice in this test. The lowest point of the stage is 300 meters above sea level. The highest point, 550. Oh no, just over 500 even. So winding up and then down and then back up again. This is one of the more kind of technical tests in this rally. I don't believe... Oh yeah, we do actually, yeah, because it wasn't in last year's one, but we'll get onto it. It's the second stage of each of the loops, because on Sunday we kick off with the Pindula test. It starts off the 490-20 road, just outside of Žilohovice nad Trevnici, and if you are one of my Czech viewers, please do correct my pronunciation because it is absolutely awful. Now, we start off on the main road, we end up then snaking through a lot of the back roads towards Pindula itself, rejoin the main road of the 490-26, We have a little bit of a chicane before we go into a hairpin, and then it's back into the back roads, up towards another town, and then back down some more back roads and valleys as well. Expect this to be twisty and technical as we end up around the... As we end up coming off the main road the second time, or the third time even, off the 490/20, there is a massive drop in elevation. So, especially if it gets slippier, especially in the second run, expect to see lots of mistakes coming in. This stage is pretty much a staple of the Barum Rally. I believe it was first run on the Barum in 1985. And whilst it's seen a few different evolutions over the years, most of the roads have featured in here. And it is largely unchanged for, I think, the past few years. I think it's 23 is the first time that we've seen the kind of current format of this 18-kilometre test. The 17 test is the most iconic out of the Barum Rally, though. It's Nikolai Gryazin's favourite stage, I believe. 11.34 kilometres, and it is so technical. There are so many parts of this stage where you end up with off camber over a crest or into a dip. You have to watch out for curbs. You have to watch out for any kind of breaking up of the tarmac as well, because we are talking back lanes as well. It wasn't in the ERC last year, so the last time we have to go off of was back in 2024. And if you're somebody who has followed the version of it that appears in Richard Burns Rally, this is the 2009 edition, not the 2010 edition, that is going to be in this edition of the Barum. So, yeah, you have a steep climb up towards the end, where you get into a really, really technical foresty section. It's awesome for the onboards, it's awesome for the camera shots, and it's awesome for the fans when you see all the different spectator areas as well. The final test that we need to talk about is the Itinerary test, the 12.62 kilometre test that will close out both loops and will serve as a rally-ending power stage. I believe it did last year as well, so it's going to be quite familiar for fans of the ERC. It made its reappearance in the ERC, or in the Barum in 2023, having been unused for nearly 20 years. The edition this year is the same as the edition last year that made up the power stage. So we end up starting off in the town itself of Itinerary and winding through some of the roads that make up the back roads of the town before climbing out towards Lučka. Then following a main road through, broken up with a chicane section for back road to get through several different hills, almost towards Pruzhno, and from there we have the end of the stage and the end of the rally. Turn the clocks back 12 months, and it was, like I said, Mr. Barum who picked up the win, Jan Kopecki. And for a sense of scale with Jan Kopecki's form here, I'm going to actually talk about this right now. So 25, he wins the Barum. I think 24. Didn't he have a puncher? Ends up 9th. 23 was second because Vaclav Pech behind the wheel of a World Rally car, but still won the ERC category. And I think, 22 was an overall win. 21 was an overall win. 2020, he didn't appear. I think, was that one of the ones that was cancelled? And then 2019, it's a win. 2018, it's a win. 2017, guess what? It's also a win. Then we get to 2016, another win. 2015, another win. I think, is it 2014? He serves as the course car with the Fabia Super 2000, so doesn't end up competing. And then you go back to 2013, another win. 2012, retirement from the engine. So, was it surprising that this guy who also won in 2011 and then retired with an accident in 2010 was up at the front? He won by 10.7 seconds. It was one of the closer wins that he's had over John Armstrong, with Andrea Mappellini in third. Then it was Simon Wagner in fourth, Eric Seiss in fifth. Then it was Filip Marej, Miko Marcik, Adam Brezek, Jakub Bitulka, and Miller Johansson rounding out the top 10. because this was one where we ended up in the top 10, 6 out of the top 10 cars. No, was it? Yeah, were Fabias. Yeah, 6 out of the top 10 were Fabias. We had then 2 Hyundais, an M Sport Ford, and a Toyota. Yeah, and then in the ERC3, it went the way of Hubert Kowalczyk, from CJ Coleman, Daniel Polaszek, who's not here this year, but has been in the previous couple of editions, and Martin Revenchak. Then the ERC4 went the way of Craig Royhill and Carl-Peter Nordstrand and then Maximilian Lichtenegger, whilst in the juniors it was the same story. So I'm not going to bet against Jan Kopecki picking up the win here. Now, I think that he is almost certainly the odds-on favourite. Well, I will look at who's going to be right behind. I would have said before, if I was recording this before the Polish rally, before what was Rally Swanska, what's now Rally Poland, I would have thought that Teemu Salonen would be maybe podium contention, but I think that he could contend for the outright win here. I wouldn't rule out any of the other drivers in the top 4 seeds either. Miko Marczyk was on the podium, and Jakub Matulka challenged Salonen for the win. Andrea Mabolini has been challenging for the win on these events and actually won the rally in Silesia when it was first in the ERC a couple of years ago. Now, is it that the Ypsilon needs more work still? Potentially. We won't know for certain. But I would say that top 4 seed, they are going to be the top challengers to someone like Kopecki. I would say Seiss, Marej as well, both absolutely rapid. If you're looking for a bet in terms of a Hankook win, yeah, you put your money on Philip Marej. I'll be impressed with what Will Crichton does, or someone like Simona Tempestini. Tristan Charpentier can also be good, especially when it comes to tarmac events. He's got Renaud Jamoul, the former co-driver of Adrian Fourmeau, alongside. This is one of those ones where you could potentially bet local. I think even when Kopecki hasn't won for pretty much my life, it's been Czech drivers that have won the Barum. But I also feel with the way the ERC has been this year, if there was a year when it wasn't going to be a Czech driver picking up the win, it could be this year. And it could be somebody like Teemu Salonen, who, yeah, I said in my review for Poland, I was not aware of his ball game when it came to tarmac. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it said. For the Rally 3s, I would not be surprised if it's one of the Irish drivers, maybe somebody like CJ Coleman. When it comes to the Rally 4s, Tom Hendricks is great. I mean, he's the half-brother of Thierry Neuville. He's going to be good at tarmac rallies. But Pesavento, Sandrin, Tececi, I mean, heck, if you look at the experience of last year, Carl-Peter Nordstrand. Anyways, folks, that's that for this video. As always, thank you so much for watching and joining. Thank you for your continued support for this channel. And, yeah, until next time, bye-bye for now.